We have a very fun panel today. We are joined by Diana Williams, the co-founder and CEO of Kinetic Energy Entertainment. And then on the far left here, we have Leo Matchett, who is the co-founder, CEO of Decentralized Pictures. All right, I'm super excited for this. I want to just kind of jump in with a couple definitions for everyone, because I think there's a running joke. If you ask 5 different people what Web3 or the metaverse or decentralized, what that means, you'll probably get 5 different answers. So for both of you, why don't we start with an opening of, what do we mean by decentralized storytelling? What is the metaverse, and how is that related to Web3?
Well, as we were just talking about, decentralized storytelling is a little bit of a misnomer, because what we're looking at is how we're going to be communicating and growing and acquiring our audience, how we're going to be letting them know what stories we want to tell and what IP we want to bring out to them. Decentralized storytelling, I mean, you can somewhat think of it back in Web 2, which is more about kind of your fan fiction, your Wattpads and your Webtoons and what have you, in which the creator comes up with a story, puts it out there, and fans can sometimes vote on it, or they can just engage with every chapter. We're not so sure how much that actually applies to what we're going to be talking about here today, but it is I think what I love so much about the title of this panel is that it gets everybody thinking and asking questions about where we're going to be going next.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, this decentralized storytelling is such a difficult topic to consider, because there's, all of the rights and how, all of the creators that are involved in actually telling the story, do you tokenize their compensation? But to answer your question about what is Web3, I feel like it's, self-sovereignty of value and data, and sort of taking the control away from the Web 2 conglomerates that have dominated the internet for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and then the last buzzword I want you to define for us is metaverse. I feel like that gets thrown around a lot. All I can think about is Mark Zuckerberg's little icon in the workplace. So what do we mean by metaverse?
On? Okay. So, yeah, Zuckerberg and Meta. So, I mean, let's be real, that was just Second Life. I mean, which we've seen. So, no shade, but that's just facts. So, when I think about metaverse, like, we're trying to figure out and one of the things that a lot of the VCs have been talking about and throwing around is like, you can take your avatar anywhere. You spend all that time building your avatar, getting personalized and everything else, and you should be able to take it wherever you want to go. That's a great, grand idea. In practicality, we have IP laws. There's no way Call of Duty is going to ever go play in Disneyland. So there are challenges to what the idea of metaverse is, but I think the mere fact that we are talking about it and how can we live our digital lives without having to run into these types of walls that keep me from just being able to flow through everything that is on my phone, on my tablet, on my TV. But I look at metaverses as a type of garden in which I can go into vegetables or flowers or whatever else without having to run into a barbed wire.
Okay, so TLDR, it's complicated. There's no one definition. All right, so I wanted to kind of set a roadmap for what we've seen so far in this quote-unquote decentralized storytelling landscape. I know, Diana, you mentioned, Wattpad is kind of a great example of fan fiction, people kind of going into a story and putting their own ideas and having a say in kind of how a story unfolds. What else have we seen now in 2022 as people are kind of getting comfortable with the idea of like decentralized storytelling?
I will lean right now a bit into NFTs a bit. Yeah. So when we're looking at the way a lot of these discords are run, it's a lot of letting the community there know what the creator is thinking, what the creator's intent is, what they're hoping to provide first for that community that is either in the Discord or on their Twitter, Telegram, everything else, have bought the NFT. and have joined. Like, I think there's a different nomenclature that's starting to happen too, where it is like, I'm joining with this, I'm a part of this, I'm sharing in the growth of this story world, of this community, of this franchise.
Right.
So, I think that's where I lean and where I think about.
Yeah, so it's almost like I'm not just a fan, I'm a part of the community here. So then when it comes to maybe more traditional Hollywood adaptations like film and TV, I mean, what exactly does that look like, Leo? What have we been seeing so far?
I mean, there's been projects that have, funded through NFTs. Of course, there's Stoner Cats as an example. But I feel like, decentralized storytelling, in terms of what we're using it for, I'm getting some feedback on this. Sorry. Is essentially using the community to help us make decisions, or an artist make decisions on what they should pursue, and which artists deserve to tell the story in a way that takes some of the control away from the players that typically have been controlling the gates.
Right.
So I feel like the idea or the ethos of Web3 and decentralized, like, self-sovereignty of data and value can transcend into the arts as well. But we need to be careful about creating reboots and just using this technology to as a gimmick, really, for established IP, I would say.
That's a great point. The gimmick idea, I think a lot of outsiders or perhaps skeptics, I might consider myself the skeptic too, might look into all of this and see, all right, the big studios like Paramount or Warner
Right.
Media, when they're getting into Web3, that just looks like an NFT of really popular IP. And I mean, I can understand why they're doing that, but if that's kind of it, is that really decentralized storytelling? Is that a gimmick? So how are you seeing some of the major Hollywood studios getting into this, and perhaps what might be some of the challenges for them as they embrace Web3?
I think the challenges will be how they actually allow the fans to, I mean, what are these NFTs for, right? Is it an experience? Is it a ticket to a theater? Can they trade them on a marketplace somewhere? I worry, I guess, that people are going to pay a lot of money for things that over time may lose value. So just to jump on the bandwagon because it's popular right now for studios, they should make sure that when they're creating these things, there is experiences, there is some value for the customers. Of course, fans want to be a part. They want to be a part of the experience and feel like they helped a film get made, or can brag that they were at the opening screening of a certain film that they're a fan of. So, for example, if you had your ticket stub to the opening screening of Star Wars, just that physical ticket stub would be, I'm sure there's some floating around in the world right now, but that would be valuable. So if that was an NFT that you could hang on to and then potentially use as a tradable, I think that's a great use case. So I guess I've seen some, I don't want to give any examples, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus, but that don't quite have that type of utility, I guess.
I think it's twofold. So what the studios are doing now in terms of NFTs is marketing, but it's smart. I mean, they have the IP. A lot of these IP people have been fans of for a decade plus. So by offering these NFTs, I mean, look at what AMC did with Walking Dead. By offering these NFTs, you're saying to the fans that have been ride or die from the beginning, here's something else that you can hold and own, however you want to display it, of the thing that you love. That is the overall promise of an NFT.
Yeah.
That's the beginning. I'm looking at it from a creative standpoint in terms of Hollywood coming in. Look, Hollywood's going to be the frenemy of anybody in this space because of the way that copyright works in studios. And so they're going to come in, is what Hollywood does. They wait for everybody else to kind of prove something else, and then they come in and swoop it up, and they either make it better or they destroy it. But that's just the nature of business anyway.
Yeah.
So in looking at, actually there's a great Twitter thread, I think from yesterday by Punk6529. He owns one of the crypto punks. And because there was a big sale that happened yesterday between punks and memes and Yuga Labs, that's Bored Apes. Now, the big question and why I really like this thread from Punk6529 is that he brings up Disney coming in and what could that mean if a big media company comes into this space. And these are the questions we have to be asking right now. Because with the promise of, as Lena said, it's control. Like what's great about Web3 and metaverse is control. That the creator of the thing is able to talk to their audience, is able to grow their fans, and able to also develop and grow their IP. So how does that work when someone else comes in and they want all rights? What happens when you give to the NFT owner? They either get commercial rights, media rights, non-commercial rights. There's a whole bunch of rights that sometimes they give to NFT owners, and it's just these are just all big questions now. We're very much TLDR.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the legal framework around that and how is it enforced? Because there's almost a oxymoron between a DAO and a for-profit company, and how do they coexist? It's a difficult question because a decentralized network, the goals of it are not necessarily always going to align with that of a for-profit company.
Yeah.
And the executives of a for-profit company, they have a duty to create value for their shareholders, and I guess, it's a difficult question, and I don't know how it's going to evolve, but I think what people are so excited about this technology, Web3, is that, it's independence. It's a way to break away from the control that these large companies have had for so long, and for them to, want to be a part of it is great. I'm glad that there is people embracing this amazing technology, but
it does feel like at this point the studios are kind of figuring things out as they go. I know Disney recently hired Mike White to sort of oversee their metaverse strategy. What that will look like kind of remains to be seen. But I guess I wanted to zero in on maybe more concrete examples of when it does work. Perhaps let's assume that like a major studio, it's in conflict with the idea of decentralized storytelling. So what will that look like for a film or a TV show or whatnot when it is fully decentralized? What does that look like for audiences? What does that look like for the creators?
Go. I'll let you take that one.
Run away. Why did I stupidly take this? I don't think we're going to know because the studios live and die by copyright. Decentralized storytelling, decentralized anything is kind of the polar opposite of copyright. So I don't know, and if I'm a studio and I come in and I decide I like what this NFT's been doing with this community. I like the story that they've been telling. They, like in Stonercast was mentioned. You guys can all look up Stonercast. It's a great example. I had read their treatment early on for Stonercast. They wanted to make an animated series, and I was flipped out. I thought it was so great, and where I was at that time.
What is Storycast?
Stoner. So STONER.
Oh, okay.
Cats, and it is literally cats get hotboxed and they get powers, and it's awesome. So I totally wanted to make it a TV series. Couldn't get the company to make the deal. Blah blah blah. So cut to like 2 years later, they hook up. Mila Kunis does a voice, and then they decided to launch it as an NFT. They raised off that NFT, off of the art of, because Stonercast was going to be animated, so they had all the art. So they launch it, they raised, rumor-wise, $8 million. When you have $8 million, you do not, at that point, have to sell to a studio. If you take your idea, I'm sure there's a lot of creators in the audience, I'm guessing. You take your idea, you write it up as a treatment, a script, or whatever else. Then, I call everything Maxi Plus. That's all the streamers. So some Maxi Plus wants to make that script into a series. They're going to take all rights. That is the boilerplate contract. They're going to take every single right. So by raising money outside the system, you don't necessarily have to sell to the studio. Great. So with the NFT community, you say like, great, you guys bought this NFT. I'm going to now make the animated series. And they've been doing that. They've been making it in chunks, and people have been watching it, enjoying it, and it's behind a paywall. So I, as Diana, who does not own the NFT, cannot see those episodes. But I, as Diana, as an NFT owner of Stoner Cats, I can watch the episodes. So now the question mark to me becomes, what happens if Adult Swim wants to buy Stoner Cats and put it up?
Yeah.
How does that work with the owners? How do they buy all the rights? If I personally, if I own Stoner Cats, if that's what I was doing, I would see about licensing that to an Adult Swim or whoever, because then all they have is the right to be, them being the streamer, all they have is the right to show the series.
Yeah.
But then that also, you pull on that thread a bit more, then how do I as the owner feel that now this thing I put money into as owning the NFT,
that anyone
now
can
it's
watch
free.
it now.
You know, but that's also 4 or 5 years later. So again, these are all questions that are evolving, but we need to be asking them now, because it's going to become a big deal as Hollywood and the streamers and everybody else start to come into the land more.
Yeah. I think also further complicating that is if you bring in the concept of, okay, prospective buyers or fans, or however you want to describe them, get to have a say in how the story unfolds, do they then be able to claim some kind of ownership over the product? Like, say they had the idea, they had the original idea for the cat or whatever, and what happens then when it actually gets made into a TV show? Where does that leave them?
That's a great question. We were just talking about that backstage. Is, you use a community on a Discord, and people are all throwing ideas to a film writer or a screenwriter. Oh, this would be cool. This would be cool. This would be cool. And you could trace that back, and if it is proven that person actually came up with the idea for the villain, or the what the character should look like. Who owns it? I mean, I guess the person who came up with it in the Discord owns it. And then how do you involve them? Is it through an NFT? Like, do they have some kind of monetary, compensation for that? I feel like we did talk about rights, and blockchain can and does, record transactions very well. That's what it's used for. And you can, hash any piece of data and put it on chain and prove that screenplay or that piece of art existed at this point in time. And I'd say that's one of the most valuable things about the technology.
Yeah.
So, maybe there's a way to use NFTs for, or create NFTs as you're in a chat, you're part of a chat app, basically, so that you could prove that your key was the one that created this piece of data, and then trace that back, or follow that up the stream to be a part of the waterfall down the road.
Yeah.
But it's a tough cookie.
Certainly. I feel like it also gets complicated when you have those candid discussions, say, in like a Discord channel. People are just chatting about what they're interested in. Say someone comes up with a brilliant idea for the villain in a TV show or whatever, but it's not recorded down. They didn't make an NFT of it. At what point how can they protect themselves, I guess, in the future if they realize, hey, that was my idea that got turned into this wildly successful show?
There's got to be some way to set up some sort of terms of use because look, you still want your community to feel engaged and be a part of this thing, and that's beautiful. But the creator has to also be somewhat protected as well. And again, I don't know if that's terms of use. I don't know if that's because you can be in a Discord as being an owner of an NFT, but you can also be just some Discords and not be an owner, so then that also gets dicey. At Kinetic, we're very much involved in a lot of different cross-platform. My whole thing is about franchise and IP and protecting creators. That's what my company does. And we've also been approached by a lot of, I will not name any names, big NFT projects right now that really want to figure out how to be a part of Web 2 and Web 3, as well as traditional traditional legacy media and new media. And the biggest thing I've been saying, and I'll say this to any creators out there, is that it's better to, when you're talking to your fans and your community, don't say, hey, what do you think about, what would you do? Is say, like, here are 3 things, 5 things, 10 things, whatever else that I have created. Which one do you like? And then have it as a vote. And then that is, you have established that copyright for yourself, but you are asking that community that is so engaged, like, what do you guys dig? What should we be going forward with? And then they still feel really a part of it, but then you're also protected. And I think this is, again, the big thing for a lot of creators and anybody coming in this space is, how do you engender and engage and trust and love and respect your community, but also really protect the ideas and your own creativity so that you can continue to move forward with the story that you're doing or the character or anything.
What you just described is what we're doing at Decentralized Pictures.
That's why we're on this panel together.
Yeah, so, the creators can query the community, and all of the voting data on what they like is on chain to make it transparent and fair for who gets support. You can also do creative queries like, which of these 3 trailers do you like best? Which one should I go to market with? Or which character sketch is the scariest? And in a decentralized way, get feedback from your community, bring them in on the creative process and helping you decide as a creator which direction you should go. I feel like that's the way we chose to solve that problem.
Yeah.
But there's definitely something super cool about decentralized storytelling where everyone actually gets to be a part of the storytelling process. I don't know. Someone's going to figure it out. but
We'll check back in a couple of years and we'll have a different conversation.
But I mean, look at Hit Record is an example, right? Like, I guess there is a project owner in Hit Record, and forgive my ignorance for not knowing exactly how it works, but my understanding is that you can task the community with specific jobs and to create the story in a decentralized way. I don't know that the actual creative necessarily is decentralized, and I feel like that's where that rights problem comes in.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So then, I guess, to play devil's advocate, what would you say to someone who says, how is this any different than me going on Twitter and having a Twitter poll, or just like having a group chat and just doing it that way outside of the blockchain, so to speak?
Well, you need an audience on Twitter to be able to get a decent poll. The way that blockchain can help with that problem is you can put up a bounty. You can say, here, I'm going to pay the world $100 to answer my query, and dynamically a smart contract could pay every person that answers the query. I'm sure Twitter could do that too, but that's how we're solving that problem. So, sure, if you have 1,000 or 1 million Twitter followers, you can do a query and get a ton of responses and get some good data that way. But I feel like Web3 allows you to incentivize that process in an efficient way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's a wild, wild west, and I say this is, like, I love Twitter, but it's a hot mess. So
I agree.
To do any kind of a poll on Twitter, because you're hoping everyone has the right intent and has good intentions, and as we know, a lot of people on Twitter are basically like 13-year-old meth head cat. So that's not a great thing.
Where you get Bodie McBoatface.
Yeah, you get Bodie McBoatface. Exactly. Whereas, again, the promise and the hope of using blockchain or, any of these more community-focused Web 2 platforms such as Discord, you're hoping that everybody there is a bit more like-minded, and you can have more of a true sample set for what you're trying to do.
Okay. So for anyone maybe in our audience or a newcomer to this kind of approach to storytelling, where would you recommend they start? They have the idea, they want to open it up to a community, but they don't know how the heck to do this.
I would say, create some cool IP, and you can mint it into NFTs. You can sell them to people as collectibles. I wouldn't promise that the collectibles will give them, some kind of revenue sharing in the revenue of the film, because you could get into security land there pretty quickly. But yeah, I feel like if you're a good artist and you can draw or create compelling IP, then you know you can crowdfund by giving people a piece of that, even if it's just a collectible, or being part of, like, the Stoner Cats project, being a part of people who get to view it, giving people rights that you wouldn't normally, or experiences that you wouldn't normally be able to participate in without actually having the NFT.
Yeah.
I think, and also definitely check out your platform. I thought you would start with that.
Well, yeah, you can check out Decentralized Pictures.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to accomplish.
But I think, I mean, I kind of really want to add to that in that I think that there are, I'll say unfortunately, there are a lot of projects that have been launching in the last couple of weeks, honestly, that are like, we have great art, everybody just come and just do it, and like, that's not enough. You need to have a team. And I do think one thing I really do like about where we're heading is that the aspect of being a team is becoming more and more important. It always was important, but then we also we quickly went into the land of the auteur, and all of a sudden everybody thinks it's like one person that makes a $200 million film, and like that's not it. And so if you are thinking about this crowdfunding, and like let's be for real, like crowdfunding's been around for a bit. There's been Kickstarter, there's Patreon where you can support the creator. But now if you are really thinking about yourself as, this thing that I'm creating, I want it to be an IP. An IP involves business, legal, creative, and then the strategy to make all three work. And just because you have a piece of art and you're gonna do generative 10,000 PFP and put it out there, the community now is very much win reveal, win thing, and it's like roadmap utility. And if you're not thinking quickly about what that next thing is, your community will come for your throat fast. So the NFT drop is just the first thing. If you're not thinking, what else am I doing about it? It just doesn't work. So I think it's for everybody to not get so caught up in the FOMO of, well, I've got to make an NFT. Well, that's not true. It's an NFT. The way that we've been trying to define NFTs and Web3 and anything is like trying to distill it down to like its base point. An NFT is a tool to get something to someone else, kind of like a comic book in some ways too. It's a way in which I can put things together and then offer it to a community. And so when you think about NFT in that way, then how is the NFT a part of a whole strategy to get out there? How is it a part of, if I'm thinking also podcast or anything else that makes a franchise? And again, like we really, at Kinetic, we're very clear on what franchise is. Again, franchise is a tool that protects creative and allows for that story creative to always reach an audience. So podcasts are a part of that. Film, TV, video games, publishing. It's all the businesses that can be licensed that's around that main IP. We can look at Harry Potter, Star Wars, all the usual suspects.
Yeah.
So, it's just thinking about it in that way and just realizing it's a part of a whole entertainment ecosystem.
I feel like one of the misperceptions is that the NFT is it. You hear of the CryptoPunks, or you hear of all these other series that are garnering so much money that people just think, okay, have a successful NFT, and that's kind of it. But as you know, it needs to be as like part of a overall strategy.
But it can just be it, because like that CryptoPunk community was really there for the art. It's like it was quote unquote one of the first like pieces of digital art, and it, it's pixel, and so yeah, they were there for the art. And I think if you are thinking about it that way and you message it that way at the very beginning, we're creating art and it's an art market and everything else, then your community is fine. But when you all of a sudden start talking about we're going to do merchandise and there's going to be here's our roadmap, and merchandise, and you can get the percentages off for this, and then we're going to do a P2E, and then like a this, then you're setting expectations.
Right.
That's beyond art for art's sake.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know, Leo, you mentioned earlier kind of the idea of not over-promising as well, like being very careful with the language that you put around a specific NFT drop, or if it's related to a project. I was hoping you could speak a little bit about that more. Maybe for newcomers into this space, what are things you should definitely not promise if it's like one of your first projects, working with NFTs or working on the blockchain?
I guess, be careful of what you can't deliver on, really. But I would say, don't promise royalties in the project. You got to be really careful about that. But promise an experience that you can deliver on. It's come to the premiere. Get some IRL benefit, whether it be being an extra in a scene on the film, or I don't know, things that you can deliver on.
Yeah. So definitely not like a writing credit or future royalties if that's not something that you can afford.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a credit in the end titles, or a special thanks, things like that you can deliver on. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I'm just hoping we can get a couple more concrete examples. I know we've been speaking very generally about this, but maybe both of you, if you have an example of a recent project that you think took all of this, everything we've been talking about so far into account, what would you say is like a perfect example of when we do this well, and what's the benefit of it all?
In for a penny, in for a pound. I'm going down in flames. Here we
go. Yeah. No, I apologize.
So, as you quickly leave the stage. So some projects I've been personally tracking that I think are doing really well in terms of how they're talking to their community, in terms of how they're thinking about what it is that they're creating. Aku, AKU by Micah Johnson. Super Ordinary Villains, which just dropped their NFT, I think like 4 days ago. It's just been so well run. It's so fun. It has a real distinctive creative voice, a smart creative team that has been around Hollywood, so they understand how that all works. But they've got a really tight tech team as well, so it's just been super well run. There's I like this amazing project called Sneakerheads. It has not dropped yet. It's got a really active Discord, but the art's phenomenal. But I'm a sneaker person, so I don't care, nor do I see how it's going to become like a story IP. And I'm more attracted to story-based and narrative NFTs. So that's really where I lean to. But Sneakerheads, I'm like, oh my God, sneakers, I'm in. But those, I think, are kind of like a lot of the main ones. There's also this other one called Cyber Brokers by the artist Josie. Again, another well-run one. She herself, she knows what her story is going to be. She's brought on somebody from Disney Interactive. She's got a tight tech team. Her mint was really well run. She runs the Discord well. But again, it's about that team aspect, but there's a bigger plan behind it. So she did a great podcast interview on, I think it's called Red Zima is the name of the podcast. And just she laid it out, but she also kept a lot of stuff back that was just so, again, it's like Leo said, it's just you want to overpromise or was it under promise and over deliver?
Yeah.
But you also want to let people know that there is a plan behind it, that there is strategy, that there is a tight team, and it's a little bit of hodl where you're just kind of like, you have to trust us, and here's why you're going to trust us. Here's our background. Here's what we're doing. So that's the way I look at these projects.
Yeah. So I guess for the planning process, you make a great point. You need to have the right team. You need to have everything prepared. You don't want to be in a situation where, again, you're over-promising, the product is not ready or the art is not great, and then you have a bunch of angry community members or a bunch of angry fans coming at you. So I guess when you are approaching this process, what are really the key points, or what do you need to have your ducks in a row before you even perhaps communicate publicly what you're trying to do?
I'm going to bring up another project as well called Mech Arcade, MECHARCADE.
That's all I have.
Mech Arcade. Beautiful art. Gorgeous art. That's kind of what first attracts people, is like, you've thought about that visual. You've thought about, and especially if you are doing something that's either going to lend, if you are thinking that way, that you think it may lend to a game, or may lend towards a linear storytelling narrative IP, you're thinking about then what is that art that can convey it. So that's where you want to first think about, because generally speaking, yes, there have been NFTs that are written word ones, but most of them are art, visual art. So you're thinking about, how does it convey what my end intent will be? That's your first step. And then it is about who's that team that comes around me. So you are thinking, do I have the right business person? Do I have the right producer? Do I have the right person who understands the tech to get it out there? But also thinking early on, who's going to run the community? Who's my moderator in that community? And it's not your 14-year-old cousin Bobo who understands how to do Telegram. It is someone who understands the world, understands that people have needs and expectations and are mean. So you are thinking about your moderator early on as well.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more with that. The team is super important, and then can't forget about the actual filmmaking of it all as well. I mean, it takes a village to make a film. So I would say, get your ducks in a row and don't overpromise.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I just wanted to end on the last note. I know we've brought up a couple of pain points, but I'm sure obviously you both are in this business because you are excited about it. And I just, for your final message to the crowd, what are your hopes and dreams for where this will go maybe 5-10 years from now? Why are you excited about keeping storytelling decentralized?
I would say I'm super excited to see what kind of talent we can discover. The possibilities are endless, and I feel like we have great technology to truly enable us to do that in a fair, decentralized way. I'm super excited about the possibilities of the disruption around fair accounting practices in this industry. From ticket to from purchaser of a ticket to the IP creator, all tracked on chain, delivered through smart contracts. I mean, that would be a beautiful thing. I think we're a long way away from that. There's a lot of incumbent inertia in that part of the film life cycle, and but it would be super cool, and I think it would be super fair for the artists and could really revolutionize the business.
Yeah, and for my company, we are, our mission is about having the ownership discussion. It is about saying to the studios and their boilerplate, why are you taking all of the rights? If you're not going to use them, why are you taking them? And so what I'm so excited about is working with creators that are ambitious and innovative and want to look at how they can fit into the landscape. And it's not to say that I'm like poo-poo if you just want to make a movie. I am saying that if you have grander, other ideas that you think could work on other platforms, I think that what Web3 and Decentralized, whatever ends up becoming the definition, and metaverse offers the opportunity to really think about how you want to be in this entertainment landscape that is shifting so tremendously now. The ability for a creator to be able to talk more directly and engage more directly with their fan community without having the middle layer, whether we're talking iTunes or Apple or anything, but without having that, being able to talk to them directly is what makes me so excited, because for those creators that want to think about longevity and sustainability, that is the promise, shall we say, right now of what blockchain and metaverse and all these decentralized tools can offer.
All right, well, thank you both so much. It was a pleasure to speak to you. Everyone, stick around. If you have a specific question for any of our panelists, we will be having sort of a Q&A or session outside here. So feel free to ask them anything you have. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.